Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Lincoln Journal Stars 4 Downs. Luke Mullin and Wilson Moore coming at you from Memorial Stadium on a Friday. A little bit of a unique day for availability here, but of course, with the short game week, next Thursday, Huskers go on the road to Minnesota. Everything pushed up a couple days. So, heard from head coach Matt Rule, several players today. And let's get into the big news of the day. The first official depth chart released. A lot of positions were kind of up in the air. Some still are, a couple of those or designations. But the first spot I think we should look at, wide receiver, Alex Bullock, former walk-on, now newly placed on scholarship, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, two of those top guys on the wide receiver line.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the positions that really was more up in the air as we were just going through training camp, going through all that. It was a pretty inexperienced group with Trey Palmer gone, Marcus Washington being injured. So, yeah, Alex Bullock kind of filling in the gap, taking one of those open spots. And same with Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. He was a guy, we know he's talented. We saw the flashes of that early last year, and he's got a shot to kind of take another step forward, build on, what little, the potential he showed us in the first couple of games last season.
Yeah, I think it's also worth noting, Rule talks about this depth chart as something that's, constantly evolving, constantly changing. And I think this first one, if anything, is kind of a recognition of who's been the most consistent, throughout camp. And Bullock, IGC, those guys definitely fit the mix there at wide receiver. But a couple of those other spots, the or designation, tight end, Nate Borkacher and Thomas Fidone listed co-starters there as well. Kicker, Tristan Alvano, Timmy Bleekrode, Jack linebacker. Those were kind of the three spots. And, especially tight end and Jack, we kind of expect all those guys to play, so it makes sense.
Yeah, especially those two. I think kicker is kind of the exception there. It's not from what we've been told, what we've seen, it sounds like tight end and Jack, those are very competitive. Lots of guys who can, play if needed. Kicker, from what we've heard, it sounds like both, Timmy Bleekrode and Tristan Alvano have had a chance, and neither has really been able to separate themselves so far. I think it's interesting that's still not resolved, especially when it's kicker, when it's something that's very just cut and dry. You either make it or you don't. It's not there's not a whole lot of evaluation that goes into it. The fact that that's still not settled is really interesting.
Not settled publicly. Who knows?
Yeah,
they might have an idea. And again, some Rule said, they're going to have a big day here Sunday. A lot of those final decisions will be made after that. And a couple other updates as we talk about that Jack linebacker spot, touching really briefly on injuries. Rule saying today that Jamari Butler was one of those top candidates for the starting role at Jack linebacker, but just picked up a stinger that sidelined him for a couple days. A couple other quick updates. Marcus Washington returning from injury, hopeful to have him back, full participant in the next couple days. They expect him to be practicing fully ahead of Minnesota. And then finally, safety Marquise Buford, again, suffered a torn ACL there right at the end of the season. So looking at his timeline, 8-9 months, he's about at that spot, but Nebraska wants to be very careful with him, not rushing back too quickly. So Rule said, don't expect him anytime soon. Week 5, week 6, who knows as the season progresses. Again, they're hopeful about Buford's recovery. It's been good progress so far, but not expecting him back anytime soon. But one guy who they are expecting a big impact there in the secondary, Deshaun Singleton, did not really play much last year. I've heard a lot. He's a good athlete. And today a couple players really made the point to talk about Singleton's skills.
Yeah, it sounds like he's put on weight. He's a bit more athletic than he was last year, and everyone expects him to be a contributor. I think safety is interesting. The three at the top of the depth chart we saw today were Isaac Gifford, Deshaun Singleton, Omar Brown. None of those guys were there a year ago. They were all more kind of backup rotational pieces. Gifford was the nickelback, so completely different safety, top line of starting safeties. And that's an interesting group, similar to what we were talking with your receiver. Not a lot of veterans there. A little more unsettled. It was more open, and those are the three guys who have those spots to begin the season.
Yeah, when you talk about Singleton, offensive players, they're quick to note he's a hard hitter. So that's something that stands out there in practice. And a final note, something from Matt Rule about game day setup. He expects his coordinators to be there on the field. Offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield and defensive coordinator Tony White says that they just like seeing it from field level. Don't think there's really much of a big difference. You can call it from the press box, you can call it from the field, but just worth noting, you can expect to see those coordinators on the sidelines so far this season. So that wraps up all we've got today. Busy Friday at Memorial Stadium. We'll have more information here early next week. Again, Huskers getting ready for that August 31st season opener. Thanks for watching today's 4 Downs. We'll see you soon.